Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, my brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV. I hope you found the first part of our program interesting, illuminating, and something that you've learned from. I'm looking at the book that Hayyan has brought. It's got some amazing pictures on it, which we'll show you in a minute. But I've just read this a soundbite in here, or somebody's written, says, "Don't envy my smile, because it took me a lot of tears to get it. When you see glory, ask for the story, which is my story as a soldier." And it's really poignant. It talks about, how much sacrifice and tears was shed in order to get the glory that we enjoy at this moment in time. So as I say, this book has got some really interesting images. It shows graphically some of the pictures, and I hope you can see the pictures on our screen, of Muslims serving, particularly in the First World War, across a vast range of different roles. And you've got pictures in here of Muslims praying before the battle, during the battle, and after the battles that they were engaged in as well. And it shows Muslims being treated in hospitals, as well as Muslim nurses treating non-Muslim soldiers within the hospitals as well. So it does contain a lot of information, and I think, for me, I would certainly advocate that particularly every Muslim school in this country, from those primary schools that we have to the secondary schools, should have this book in their library to ensure that young people have access to it, and they learn from this the actual contribution, the vast amount of contribution that was made by hundreds of thousands of Muslims of all nationalities, not just from the Asian subcontinent, but from the Middle East, as well as from the African subcontinent. And as we heard today from the United States of America, I wasn't aware that there were 5,000 Muslims in the USA at that time. Now we have learned, and it's documented, it's proof, it's not fake news that Donald Trump would claim is fake news. This is reality, that 5,000 Muslims living in that state, in the USA, at that particular time, volunteered to come and fight in the First World War. So here is in my view, a really important and vital piece of work that has been done by Hayyan and his colleagues. And I would congratulate you on this. I think this is fascinating.
Thank you.
And I would certainly say it is an absolute must read for Muslim young people, because unless we know our own history, and unless we know how much our forefathers have sacrificed, we will never be able to stand proudly as some others can do. So we need to be proud. We need to be honoring our forefathers for the work that they did and the sacrifice they made. And this is something that I think is unique. We see all sorts of research going on, but to me this is absolutely vital and important. I mean, having said that, I'm sure there will be people who will not view this in a positive light. And maybe, I know you said you are self-funded, volunteer-funded. Yep. You don't take any money from any government organization.
That's correct.
Or the armed forces in this country, do you, by any chance?
That's correct.
So you don't receive any funding from the British Army?
That's correct.
Or the Royal Navy or the Royal Air Force?
Not a penny.
So it's not a propaganda tool on their behalf, is it?
Absolutely not.
So you're absolutely clear about that. So there we go. It is an independent organization which is self-funded by, as he said, volunteers, people who want to make donations, people who are like-minded, who want to see Muslim history recorded. So where do you see this going next as part of your journey?
I think it's a good question. We didn't think that we would be where we are today. I don't think anything ever really goes to plan. Who knows? We have so many project ideas in the pipeline. Mm-hmm. It just depends on what we can feasibly do first. And I think there's so much information we need to figure out ourselves what to do with it. But I would like to see curriculum materials in all schools, not just
the Muslim schools. Yeah,
but in all
that
schools.
would be my preference.
Yeah.
That's why I said schools need to actually adopt this. But at least if the state schools don't at this moment in time, then
well,
let
we
the
hope
Muslim
academies,
schools,
would, madrasas, other faith yes. schools, but not just in the UK, but also in Europe, but also in the Middle East. Because I think young people in the Middle East also need to know this information. Because, from some surveys and polling that we've done, unfortunately, a lot of young people living in the Middle East are also poisoned by modern day narratives about Muslims.
Right.
It poisons their worldview that even they don't think that anything can be positive about the history of Muslims in Europe. And we would hope that it would change that narrative. But also, for non-Muslim children, if they were taught this in school from a young age, when they themselves are confronted with people from their own communities who would say things about Muslims, say that Muslims don't belong here, immediately this information insulates them from that, from falling into that trap of believing that nonsense, because they would say, well, that's not true because I learnt in school that XYZ fought for us too. So many millions of Muslims fought for us too. So it immediately, insulates children against the kind of divisive narratives that we hear today.
A couple of years ago, the government had this initiative of recognizing people from the Indian Army in particular, as well as the African Corps, who got the Victoria Cross and marked those people's birthplaces. I mean, that type of work. I mean, in fact, people who may not be aware of this, there are, I think, about 8 or 9 people from the Indian Army, the British Indian Army, who were awarded the Victoria Cross. And 2 years ago, the government came up with the initiative to mark those people wherever they were born with a plaque to remember the contribution they made in the Great Wars. Now, this is an initiative that the Anti-Muslim Hate Crime Working Group came up with as well, and the government supported it. Now, initiatives like that, if we were done in this country, do you think that would help raise this knowledge and information within schools?
I think so. I mean, imagine if we saw more statues and monuments and memorials just in London of people who don't have white faces or English names. Not that there's anything wrong with celebrating those. Of course, we should remember those too. But imagine how it would challenge the stereotypes that people have in their minds about people from the former colonies or Commonwealth countries. But in particular, I think it's particularly important to know the contribution of Muslims because of the rising far-right activity, the rising anti-Muslim hatred. And I think that's the issue that we really need to grapple with, unfortunately.
And have you done any work around Srebrenica? I mean, remembering Srebrenica. I mean, I know it's far away from the history that you've been researching, but is there any work going on around that? That I know there's a government initiative, and there's an annual sort of commemoration on the 11th of July every year, and I've been involved in a few of those in the past couple of years. But again, linking the two together.
Well, there are parallels. So, I mean, if you think about the importance of why preserving and collating and archiving this kind of material is so important, you look at something that happened, 26 years ago?
Yes.
The fighting that was happening in Sarajevo. A lot of the museums and archives and government buildings that were holding a lot of documents about Muslims from that part of the world that were involved in the First and Second World War have been destroyed. They were burnt down or they were looted.
Right.
That's now information, 200,000 documents, maybe more, that were lost, and that was in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
Right. So it's still happening.
We have one caller, I've been told. So let's go to this call.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. Can I have your name, please?
Walaikum assalam. I'd just like to say that you are doing a good job of spreading the history of the Muslim cult, the book that you issued. But the problem is that our community needs to expand this. And the thing is that Muslims need to now wake up and teach this in schools. And the thing is, our own mosques need to learn this as well, and that they need to encourage the children to understand the history of where we came from. Now, all we get to know is what we get taught in school, and then this is why we don't understand the rest of the history, how it's going. And our parents are lazy in finding the history.
I mean, thank you very much. I mean, those are the very points I made at the beginning and in the middle as well, that I think we are, to our shame, we have not really researched our own background. We've not sort of dredged the depth of the commitment and dedication of people who are involved in these two conflicts, and found out the realities of what happened. And as I said, I went to school when I was young in this country, and none of my history, the lessons that I learned, was there any mention of the contribution of the Commonwealth soldiers, whether they were from the Indian subcontinent or whether they're from the African continent or the Middle East. So you've got a very one-dimensional element of the history. So and I agree with you that we have to take ownership of this. We have to take this and we have to tell our children about this. And that's why today I really wanted Hayyan to come. I've been trying to get him for a few weeks, so we can bring this to the attention of the thousands and hundreds of thousands of IQRA TV viewers who watch this program week in, week out. And I hope that you will then now go out there and spread this word as well, because that is how we can empower our community. And again, coming back, I would like to see our mosque and madrasas also take up, as the sister says. So sister, thank you very much for your point. For them to take on some of this. I mean, obviously, for them to have a book like this is going to be very difficult. I mean, can you succinct this, précis this into a small leaflet that we can send to mosque and madrasas as part of the promotion, and then they can obviously move in, further into the main body of the book to tell them, at least in the first place. Because if I went to my madrasa, when we have 850 children, it's one of the biggest madrasas in our area, and we have probably 55 teachers in that madrasa. And if I asked every one of them, do you know anything about the contribution of Muslim soldiers in the 2 world wars, I virtually guarantee that the answer I'm going to get back is, yeah, some Muslims died, but they won't know the extent of the contribution that Muslims made. And if we don't teach our children, nobody else is going to teach them. So the onus is on us to do so. So have you got any thoughts, any ideas about doing something similar?
I think that's a very good idea. Smaller versions of some of the information that we have, whether it's leaflets or a miniature version of that book, maybe. Something that's more digestible, that can be shared en masse,
with young kids,
with children, with madrasas, with history teachers. I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah. I'll take that back definitely to my colleagues.
I mean, there is an exhibition going on similar to the Anne Frank exhibition, but about Muslim contribution in the war. I mean, have they taken on any of this work that you've been doing? Because I forget the name of the guy who works in the army, who's been going around the country. It's mainly a recruitment exercise, and as part of that recruitment exercise, they talk about a little bit of the history, but it's not exclusively about Muslim history. It's about the history of the Asian subcontinent in the engagement in the wars. But obviously that is going on, and maybe we can help you try and promote into the work that they're doing.
Yep. So you're right. There are several organisations doing that with schools in Britain, with the army and others. What makes us different from those organisations and their work, which is very good and we support it absolutely, it parallels our project. The only difference between us and them is that our project focuses on the global allied Muslim contribution, whereas those projects look at just the national picture, how it's seen from a British point of view, which is British colonies, so the subcontinent.
Right.
Which is a very small number in comparison. I mean, it's a fantastic number, 400,000 roughly Muslim soldiers from the British Indian Army, but it pales in comparison to 2, 3, maybe 4 millions around the world.
Right. So obviously the vast majority came from the other parts
That's right.
of the world, not the Commonwealth or the colonies as such.
That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, again, going back, how do you see your role, your foundation, of the Foundation of Heroes in 1419 and Muslims in World War I? How do you see yourself engaging with the mosques and madrasas? What do they need to do? I mean, how can they access you and the information that you have and you hold? Because I think mosques and madrasas, and particularly schools, need to get engaged with you, need to start lines of communication with your foundation, so they can tap into this rich resource that you have. So tell our viewers
Thank you. So the best thing that people can do, please do get in touch with us. Our website is muslimsinworldwar1.com. That gives us an introduction of our project and what we do and our intention behind the project. And then we have a book website, theunknownfallen.com, where people can buy the book, learn more about the book. And also follow us on Facebook, Twitter. It's at Muslims in World War One for both, or at FHF1419 for the Foundation's Twitter account. But also share our information. Get in touch with us, email us. We're at info@muslimsinworldwar1.com. And also get in touch with us about our tours. So we run a tours with a very famous tour operator that has won many awards, and they have been working with schools for 20 years.
And how much would that cost for? Let's say there's a parent out there who wants to, get their children to understand and gain this knowledge, like our sisters who rang in. How could they access, and how much would it cost them, roughly?
So the tours are group bookings. It'll cost approximately around about £200 per head. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on the size of the group. If we have a greater group booking, of course we can negotiate rates, but it's very competitive in comparison to other battlefield tour groups that run similar things. And the other niche that we have is we are currently, as we know, the only tour provider that is taking people to a very diverse set of settings. So including the Muslim sites. Nobody else goes to the Muslim burial sites or the Muslim graves, or does a combination of those different sites that I mentioned earlier. South African Memorial, Chinese Memorial, Egyptian Memorial, etc., and the Indian Memorial in the same tour. So I think that we have something unique that only currently we offer. So just I would say to the viewers, come and get in touch with us, engage with us, and encourage your schools to maybe engage with us and take your children on our tours.
I think that's a really good point, because I'm sure there are many viewers of IQRA TV who are governors or parent governors on their school governing body, and I would certainly urge you that you should be looking at the information in this book, and you should be encouraging the teachers in your schools that they should incorporate this as part of the history work that they do in every school, regardless of whether they're a Muslim school or not a Muslim school, whatever school they may be. As if you're a parent governor or a teacher governor, whatever it is, if you're a governor, you have the opportunity here to actually promote this aspect of the Muslim contribution into the curriculum within your schools. So I would encourage you to do that. In terms of, we talked about the centenary, that we've got the 1918. Is there anything really sort of positive happening to mark the Muslim contribution during the celebrations or the commemorations of the centenary? Are you aware of any work that is going on?
I mean, there are small projects here and there located in different parts of the country. They involve some organisations are giving lectures to current British Army personnel. Some school organisations are going to work with school children and college children of school leaving age to inform them about this project, about this information. But to our knowledge, nobody is doing it on a grand scale as we'd like it to happen. So I think that we have a long way to go, which is why we need everybody's support. I would like for the information that we now know about the First World War to be so mainstream that nobody would have to think, nobody would have to think that it's shocking.
Yes.
I mean, this is information that is 100 years old, and we have uncovered it for the first time over the last 6 years. Like I said, we were astonished that there are as many as 850,000 unique documents. And so just think about how much information is there, the knowledge and gold. I just think that we can only really achieve what we want to achieve in telling the story if we have that support.
One of the things with the Jewish community, for example, is the Anne Frank exhibition, which goes around the country, which talks about how in the Second World War the Jewish community suffered tremendous atrocities committed by the fascist regime. I mean, have you thought about doing something similar, where you have a touring exhibition? That, I mean, we have hundreds of Muslim community centres in this country.
Yep.
You know, where all sorts of activities take place. And I'm sure, you know, if we could put together an exhibition that tours around the country, that might be a good way in to impart this knowledge.
Yep.
And I'm putting you on the
no,
on
that's
the line,
fine.
on the line at the moment.
So I mean, I've got a smile on my face because that was one of our original plans. But as you can imagine, with the amount of information we have access to, putting together an exhibition, while it is an intention of ours that travels, in fact, around the world, not just in the UK, you can imagine it's very expensive.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. Yes.
To collate and digitize all of those documents to create an exhibition. But also it'll be time consuming to go through all of that information and decide what we want to showcase. So we're taking small steps. We will eventually get to that, I hope, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
And it was actually one of our very first intentions. And the challenge is so great. But we will make it. We'll make it there.
I mean, I'll tell you why. Because in my previous life, I was assistant director in local government, responsible for equality and diversity. And we wanted to, as part of the work we were doing, I was asked whether we could bring the Anne Frank exhibition to Wakefield, which is where I used to work. And I had to, and I was quite happy to do so. I paid £10,000 from my budget to bring the Anne Frank exhibition from London to Wakefield. And we had it in the cathedral. And, you know, during the week, virtually every school in the district came to see the Anne Frank exhibition. And the amount of information that transmitted to the children and the power of that information and how that actually sat with children in their minds, you know, and sort of created their mindset was unbelievable. The power of knowledge through image is absolutely powerful. So, I mean, I know it's not an easy task, and I know it's very expensive, as you say.
But I mean,
inshallah,
of course,
Allah willing.
Inshallah. But of course, if anybody could mimic that kind of support in which they could help us, both logistically, practically, financially, to put something like that, even if it is just in one region in the country, of course, we'd gladly do it. So please, if anyone can, they should definitely get in touch with us, and we'd be delighted to meet with them and work together.
So, I mean, there you go. I mean, here we have a challenge for our Muslim community. I'm sure there'll be somebody out there, inshallah, I hope, who understands the value of what this work is all about, the importance of it in ensuring that not only our children, but all children in this country hear and learn about the role that Muslims made in the two world wars, particularly in the First World War, which has been documented, and that they will want to contribute to make this into an exhibition that goes around the country and the world, showing to those who attack us on a day-to-day basis that, you know, we have equally shed our blood in order that everybody else enjoys their freedom as well. I hope you found it really interesting. We're about to come to the end of the program. Hayyan, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure our viewers will have found this really fascinating. I'm sure you'll be empowered, and I hope sincerely that you will use what you've heard today in order to promote the role that Muslims played in the great two wars. I hope that this will be something that you will have enjoyed. Jazakallah khair. Next week, inshallah, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues who came here before, Janine Wali, to come and share her experiences of coming into Islam. I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, may Allah take care of you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.